Have you felt a little foggier than usual lately? Whether that is intuitively, mentally, or energetically? If your focus feels off, if your visualization feels a little bit harder, if your intuition seems a little quieter than usual, I want to start by saying that nothing is wrong with you. Winter doesn't just affect our bodies, it also affects our minds. It can affect our intuition, our visualization. So, tonight we're going to be talking about the witch's mind in winter and how our psychic focus, how our visualization, and how our intuition can change during this time of the year, and how we can work with that rhythm rather than trying to focus or force clarity that belongs to a completely different season. So, merry meet, I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin. Tonight we're here talking about the witch's mind in winter. This is about focus, intuition, and psychic fog. So, welcome to those who are joining us live. Say hi in the chat. Let us know you are here. Merry meet to all who are joining us, whether live or in replay. If you are live, we have a Q&A at the end of every episode, so you can feel free to leave your questions and comments. Let me know if the microphone is working, and we got a lot to talk about, so we're going to dive right in. But before we do, make sure to leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the feed, and that will help us get this out to more people. So merry meet. We're going to dive in, and we are going to start by acknowledging the season and the collective state that we might be in energetically, as well as mentally and emotionally. And all of this is going to change quite a bit because of the season. Now, during winter, we may feel what we call midwinter fatigue, and sometimes we think that's only about our bodies, but that can actually be about our minds as well. We also may feel mental fog. So, we're going to be talking about that in tonight's episode. We may be feeling low motivation, whether that is in our mundane life, or that is in our magical one as well, or maybe both. We might be feeling heightened sensitivity. So, I'm here tonight to normalize all of these things. So, if your mind feels quieter, if you feel like it's slower, if you feel it is less sharp right now, then I just again want to let you know that nothing is wrong with you. And it's really about how we figure out how to move through this energy as efficiently as we can and work with what we have right now instead of forcing, again, something that feels like it belongs to a different season. So, this episode is not at all about productivity hacks. We're not talking about ways to become more efficient with our productivity. We're not going to be figuring out ways to force our clarity tonight. What we're really going to be talking about is learning how the witch's mind naturally changes with the season and how we can best fully utilize that, and learning how to work with winter consciousness, which is quite a bit different than spring, summer, or fall consciousness. Winter does not take our magic away, but it can ask us to redirect our energy in a different way. And the more that you know about that, the better you're going to be at being aligned with this season. So merry meet to a few I see in the chat, Anne and Jenny and Joanne. Merry meet, everybody. Let me know if the microphone is working, and again, let us know that you are here if you're watching us live. And I see Glitter just joined us too as well. Merry meet, merry meet. So what is the witch's mind? So why don't we start with that? The witch's mind includes many things like focus and attention, visualization and imagination, intuition and psychic perception, as well as inner imagery, symbolism, and pattern recognition. So, all of these things we can utilize in order to best work with our minds during this season. Now, these things will shift and they will change depending on what part of the wheel of the year that you are in. Now, one of the things that I think is most important to remember is that the witch's mind is not the same as the linear productivity brain. So when we are working in the mundane world and we're trying to be productive, there are times when that brain is going to be the one that we want to use, right? But when it comes to the witch's mind, when it comes to our spell work and our spiritual practices and our rituals and our maybe our intuitive arts, that is not the mind that we want. The witch's mind is cyclical. It is symbolic, right? It speaks in symbols. It speaks in words too, sometimes, but generally not in full, complete sentences often. It is somatic, which means it forces us to recognize the feelings in our bodies. And it is also seasonal, which is why I decided to do this episode tonight to kind of normalize some of the things I've been hearing in our communities where people are telling me that they're really drained right now. They're struggling to focus. They are questioning their intuition. And I'm here to say that all of that is just simply part of this seasonal energy. And the sooner that we learn how to align with that, the more we are going to feel productive, maybe in a different way during the season, but we'll feel more productive than what we may be feeling right now, which is like kind of foggy or confused or low energy and drive. So thank you for letting me know the mic is working. Also, drop in the chat too. How have you been feeling lately? Are you feeling like you usually feel? Or are you feeling a little foggy? Are you feeling a little slower? Are you feeling like your intuition might be a little blocked right now? Let us know. I want to normalize both ways. It doesn't mean that you have to be feeling like your intuition is quieter or your energy is slower. But if it is, that's good for us to acknowledge as well. So why is it that witches might feel different in winter, and why might it affect us a little more mentally than it does others? So I think part of this has to do with the fact that many witches, whether they use this term or not, many witches are empathic or at least more sensitive to energy than others. Many witches are also highly intuitive, which is what can bring them to this path in the first place. So I think that what happens is in winter is that there is less outside stimulation, which means that we are focused more on internal awareness. There may be heightened subconscious and unconscious material coming to the surface, which again requires that inner focus or that inner, at least that inner focusing of our energy and awareness. There may be increased dream activity. So if you are somebody who doesn't normally dream very much, you may be noticing that you have increased dream activity right now. I notice that I struggle with dreaming, especially if I don't sleep enough. So if I don't get at least about 7 hours of sleep kind of regularly, I notice that I don't have a lot of very visual dreams. But recently, even with less sleep, I've been noticing I've been having more dreams. There's definitely this more inner shift and focus that I have been noticing, kind of my mind turning more towards the unconscious. And there also may be slower cognitive rhythms right now. So just like with our body, we move a little more slowly during winter. Our mind also, the rhythms of our cognitive mind may also move a little bit more slowly. So I think that what is most important for us to remember here, though, is that this isn't some kind of regression. We're not moving backwards. You're not losing anything. I'm going to normalize this multiple times throughout the episode tonight. This isn't regression. This is descent. So we are descending, the winter encourages us to descend into the unconscious. And that, if you are feeling a little off right now, a little foggy, that is likely what is happening to you. So let us know again. Let us know how you've been feeling. So I see Anne says definitely feeling sluggish. Jenny said, yes, tired, slower, less energy, and more foggy. I was just at a shop earlier today, a witchy shop, and I was talking to some of the people there, and they were also talking about feeling like energy is a little bit slower right now, a little more tired. Seems like we need a little bit more rest. So very normal. Just wanted to normalize it, make sure that we understand it's not just you. There's nothing wrong with you. You are just simply feeling the energy and the rhythm of the season. So this episode, hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll actually truly internalize that is normal, and then you'll have some strategies and some things that you can do to make the most of this time rather than pushing and fighting and struggling against it. So, winter and the psychic mind. So, what actually changes during winter when it comes to our psychic mind? Well, I think that one of the things is our focus and our attention changes and it shifts. What are we focusing on may become something different. So, what people will sometimes notice, and if you haven't noticed these things, it also doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. But if you have been noticing these things, this is part of the season. So you may have some more difficulty concentrating. Now, also outside events that happen will also compound that. So there's a lot going on in the world, and in if you live in the U.S. or nearby the U.S. or any part of the world for that matter, there's a lot going on right now that can feel very heavy, right? And so that can definitely contribute to some of this. Any of the outside things happening are going to contribute to what is going on with you internally. But winter then will also can make it difficult to concentrate. It can decrease your attention span, and it can also cause mental fatigue. So just like we feel the fatigue in the body, we can feel it in the mind. So what is really happening though? So I don't actually think that this is your energy being depleted. I think what's really happening is that your energy is pulling inward. And so if you think about like physical, right? So when we are in winter, and especially this can be true if you live in a place that is quite cold, you may notice that physical kind of slowing down. You want to hibernate a little bit more. There's more nesting behavior, right? You want to curl up on the couch. You want to be comfortable. You want to do a little bit less, move a little bit less. If we look at nature outside of us, even if we don't live in a place that's super cold, nature outside of us also slows down during this time. So, our energy naturally pulls inward in order to conserve it and preserve it. And so that can also happen with our mental energy. Our focus can become narrower but deeper. So rather than being able to focus on a bunch of things all at once, you may find that you're more focused on one or two things, but your focus may be deeper. You may find that if you try to put in a lot of sustained effort into something, you may notice that that sustained effort drains faster. So I think it's important for us to reframe this. The winter time is meant for reflection. Just like with the body, it's meant to kind of rebuild resources, conserve them, rebuild them so that they are prepared and ready for the spring. So the same thing happens with our inner energy, our mental energy. Focus can also be for inner inquiry as far as opposed to outside focus, right? It can be more about one thing at a time rather than many things at a time. Now, this can also affect our visualization and our imagination in winter. So there's several things that can change for us. So for focus for one, visualization for another, and our intuition as well. So what people will often report during this time of year, they might say things like, I'm noticing that I can't visualize as well as I used to. They might say things like the images seem fuzzier or dimmer than they usually do. So, if you're somebody who doesn't normally struggle with visualization and imagination, and then you find yourself struggling, this could help to explain that. And then if you are somebody who normally struggles and you find there's even a bigger struggle now, again, this can help to explain that. So let us know, how has your visualization been? Have you noticed that there are any changes in your visualization, in your imagination, and in your focus? So in winter, our visualization will often shift from visual to more of a felt sense inside of the body, into emotions, into symbols, as opposed to kind of movie-like scenes in the mind. It may also transform into and focus more on body memory. So one of the things that I always you know, try to direct people to when I'm leading meditations is that even if even if I'm doing like a guided visualization meditation, I try to encourage people to feel into their senses, feel into their bodies, notice textures and tastes and smells. All of this is important information. And so the visualization doesn't always mean that it has to be these pristine, beautiful visual images in the mind. Visualization generally does not disappear. So if you are somebody who felt like your visualization used to be better and it no longer is, or you're noticing a period of time where it doesn't seem as strong, just know your visualization doesn't disappear. Just like your spiritual gifts, they don't disappear. So sometimes people will write to me and they'll say, I feel like I've really lost all of this stuff. And I'm just here to tell you that's not possible. It's just that it's dim. It's dimmer right now, and it just needs to. You need to focus on the, and manage your expectations around what can be possible at any time seasonally, and then perhaps when it comes to visualization, especially refocusing on what visualization means. Now, your intuition and your psychic perception can also change during this time. So, what might change? Your intuition may feel like it is quieter. Maybe you are used to hearing from your guides more and you're feeling like you don't hear as much at this time. You may notice that you have less spontaneous hits. So maybe your intuition is kind of spot on at other times of the year, and now you're noticing less of that right now. You may notice fewer kind of outward downloads. So I'll talk about those downloads sometimes. Like we create this analogy of the mind as a computer. Sometimes our intuition can feel like we're receiving cosmic downloads. And for those of you who have experienced it, you know what I'm meaning. Some of you may not understand the language, so I'm just going to explain it a bit. But sometimes it can feel like out of nowhere you receive all of this information that you did not have the second before, and it's almost like it's downloaded into your mind, into your brain, right? And it can give you insight into things that maybe they have puzzled you for years or even decades, and all of a sudden in one instant you have the insight into this thing, and all of a sudden kind of understand the connections and the answers. And so you may notice during the winter time that you have fewer of those. If that's the way that your intuition usually works, you may notice that you have fewer of those right now. Now, what is actually happening? Does it mean that your intuition has gone away? Absolutely not. Your intuition tends to become a little more subtle during the winter season. It can be slower. It can be layered, meaning that it's just working in a different way. There are multiple layers to it. It can be more dream based. So that could seem subtle to someone who feels like consciously, while they're awake and while they're conscious, they receive these kind of insights. And now they're not really receiving as many, but they're having more dreams. And that could be where your intuition is coming from at this time. And your intuition may also be more symbolic. A lot of things can be more symbolic during the winter time. Now, your unconscious mind doesn't really know how to communicate in words, and so it will use symbols, it will use visuals like that to get your message out to you. It can use numbers, it can use various different things that you may or may not understand the connection or the meaning to. But if we are not able to kind of shift our energy into this more receptive place that the winter season requires of us, we may be missing a lot of this stuff that's coming through, and it may feel like we're struggling, right? We're struggling against it. We're fighting against ourselves. We're fighting against our intuition, against our mind. But if we can accept the changes that happen during winter and understand that they don't just happen in the physical body, I think we'll have a much easier time of the winter. So Anne said she's been noticing a lot of trouble grounding, and that is something I've also been hearing from others as well. Jenny said tired, slower, less energy, foggy. So I do think what I invite you to kind of consider is think about it. Have you felt like you have more insight through your dreams now than maybe you usually do? Do you notice any repeating ideas that are coming up? Now, I do want to differentiate repeating ideas from repeating negative thoughts. So the conscious brain, the ego brain can repeat on repetition these negative thoughts that will get in the way of whatever forward motion we're trying to have. So when I say repeating ideas, I'm not meaning those repeated negative thoughts. What I'm really meaning is just like a nagging idea or a kind of a little nudging idea, maybe try this, do this, and you keep hearing that repeating very subtly and maybe very softly. So just listen for that right now. If you're being encouraged to slow down, if you're being encouraged to, maybe you're somebody who does a big elaborate ritual every lunar cycle on the full moon or the new moon or something like that, and you feel this nudge to do something a little simpler this cycle. Really being able to listen to those. There also may be more emotional signals coming through. You're going to feel more emotions in your body maybe. And so really paying attention to those body sensations can be key right now. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was psychic fog. And so because I have been hearing from many, they're feeling foggier at this time. So what is psychic fog versus what it isn't? Psychic fog can look like a lot of different things. It can look like mental dullness or not being as sharp mentally right now as you usually are. It can look like forgetfulness. So if you are somebody who is usually kind of remembers everything and you've noticed things kind of slipping your mind, again, this is normal for this time of the year. If you are somebody who is normally forgetful and you notice that getting even worse, again, kind of normalizing that right now. Maybe feeling like you are offline. So to use that analogy again of the mind as a computer, and receiving those downloads of cosmic consciousness from our guides or outside of us. And maybe it feels like the computer's offline at this time. Maybe doubting your intuition. Doubting intuition, by the way, is extremely common in our communities. A lot of people don't talk about it because they think it's only them who does, or doubting their abilities. But if you notice that you are doubting that more right now, again, just we want to normalize all of this. So what is psychic fog not? What is it not? So psychic fog is not blocked intuition. So again, don't worry. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not like your intuition has gone away and it's never coming back. Mental fog, psychic fog is not failure. It's not failure to maybe I'm going to use myself as an example. I do like a pretty elaborate ritual every dark moon, and the dark moon was on Saturday, and I led a ritual on Sunday for the new moon for our Shadow Seekers group. And I just haven't had the energy to be able to also do my personal ritual on top of that. And so that can sometimes feel like I'm failing myself, I'm failing my practice, I'm failing the goddesses and gods that I work with. But just remembering it's the energy of the season, it's never failure. And when we attribute it to our own failure, all that we are doing is we are creating more negative energy that isn't going to get us to the place that we want to be. So that is why I wanted to do this episode tonight, is just to kind of normalize all this and let you know it's okay to do simpler things right now. The springtime will be here before we know it. Your energy will start to change and you may have more energy physically, mentally, and emotionally for more. But right now it's okay if you don't. Psychic fog is also not spiritual stagnation. That's a word that it frightens many of us. We don't want to be stagnant. We don't want stagnant energy in our bodies. We work to move that, hopefully through energetic exercises and practices. But this is not stagnation. This is simply this time of the wheel of the year. It's also not a loss of your ability. So like I said before, I can't say it enough. Just remember, you'll never lose your abilities. It may feel that they get blocked or clouded or foggy or different things like that, but you will never, ever lose them. So psychic fog is really a more of a protective slowing down. So remember what I said earlier. If you kind of look outside at nature around you, you should be able to see, like, I mean, unless you're in the southern hemisphere where everybody's opposite where we are in the northern hemisphere. In the northern hemisphere, if you look outside in nature right now, it's slower, right? There, no matter what part of of the world in the northern hemisphere you are in, it is a little bit slower. This allows us it allows the body to regenerate itself, and it also allows for nervous system recalibration. So there's a lot of energy that gets spent during the spring and the summer and into the fall. And winter gives us the time to recalibrate that energy and recalibrate our nervous systems. This is an integration phase. So sometimes people ask me, well, what does it mean to say that like we're trying to integrate something or we're in an integration phase? Integration is where we take the things that we've learned and we integrate them into the way that we are so we can move forward with our lives, whether that is in the mundane or the magical life. We can move forward with it really deeply, understanding and utilizing what we've learned. So we can't always be in a learning phase, right? If we're always learning, one of the things we know about the brain is it can't constantly be learning. There is a limit to how much we can learn at one time. And then the brain is going to need time to integrate it, to make sure that it can take all the things it's learned and bring them into the future, right? And so the same thing happens with our energy. We are in an integration phase right now. So your mental fog, your psychic fog, it is a sign that something is rearranging itself beneath the surface. So embrace that rather than fighting against it. Understand that your body and your mind and your energy is doing exactly what it should be doing so that you will come through this cycle different, right? So we talk about this witch's mind. It's not about linear growth. Our healing is rarely ever linear healing. It's cyclical, right? But if we skip this phase, the integration phase, if you kind of think of it as a wheel, and we skip that integration phase and we move straight from the growing and the learning, and we never have that, we're just not going to grow and learn as well as we could. So how can we work with the witch's mind in winter? So we've talked a lot about what it is, why it feels different, and now how can we work with it to best utilize this energy so that we are prepared when things change in spring? So winter does not ever ask us to stop practicing. It may just ask us to change it a little bit. Or change the way that we practice. So here is a few tips for you, including just some kind of general tips as well as some things that you can try, especially if you're feeling kind of that foggy energy right now. So we should adjust our expectations. So I think that is the first thing that I would say is most of our frustration is going to come from expectations that belong to another part of the wheel, that belong to another season of the year, right? So we unconsciously expect, so whether you kind of in your conscious mind understand this or not, your energy consciously expects more clarity in spring, right? The beginning of growth. In summer, there's more energy. Litha, midsummer, right? The summer solstice is like the full moon of a lunar cycle. It's the height and the peak of the energy. So we expect that upswing of energy and the ability to do more. Autumn, we might expect more discernment, being able to, I think of like the season of autumn is the kind of final quarter of the lunar cycle, right? So this is the time when we're deciding what stays and what goes, what is serving us and what is not serving us. So we unconsciously expect that. And then in winter offers us more depth, more containment, and then that ability to integrate what we learned through the previous 3 seasons. So if you have been telling yourself that you should be able to focus better, then I really invite you to pause here and ask yourself why. First of all, we should always be careful. I use the word should there, but we should always try to be careful when we use that word, right? But if you have been telling yourself, I should be able to do this, I should be able to focus, I should be able to have more clarity, pause and ask yourself why. Winter focus is quieter, it is shorter, and it is more internal. And if that's how you've been feeling, you are exactly where you should be energetically. Shorter practices never mean lesser practices. People know I say that all the time when it comes to spiritual growth and your daily or almost daily spiritual practice. Shorter ones never mean lesser ones. One meaningful insight is greater than 10 scattered ones that don't like really anchor anywhere, right? Rest is part of your psychic hygiene as well. And that involves not just the rest of your body, but the rest of your mind and your energy and your emotions. So how can we support focus in winter? So what could we do? So let's talk about how to focus, how to support some more focus during winter, how to support more better visualization, right? And then what to do if that psychic fog is here. So what not to do? So if we're trying to support winter focus, one of the things that I recommend not doing is don't do extremely long rituals if they drain you. So thinking back to my example, right, thinking about this ritual that I usually do that is pretty elaborate and big and involved, I just couldn't bring myself to have the energy to do it, especially because I had expended so much of my energy leading the group through their new moon ritual. So if you find that the long rituals and the long practices are draining you right now, that is okay. It's okay to work towards shorter practices or focus more on shorter practices. Maybe now is not the time to be doing extremely complex spell work unless you feel you have that energy. So again, I want to normalize all of this. If you are feeling you have tons of energy right now, do anything that your body and your mind and your energy invites you to. But if you feel that your energy and your mind and your body are slower, don't fight against it. Find ways that will align better with the energy that you have, not the energy that you kind of think you should have, right? Maybe multi-step practices that require sustained attention may not work as well right now. So it's okay to do smaller things. So what does work? So sometimes people will find that a single pointed focus of an intention is better than something much larger and more general, right? So here would be a few examples of things that might align better to this energy of this part of the wheel, especially if you're feeling kind of drained. So lighting a candle and then staying with it for a couple of minutes. I've said this before, it's one of my favorite ways to stay involved in a spiritual practice without doing a lot. So you light the candle, you set an intention, and you sit in front of it for a couple of minutes and you just reflect. It's very small, it's very short, but there's a lot of bang for the buck, and it can be actually give you more when you are at a lower energy state than if you tried to do something much bigger. That smaller practice may actually give you more because it's more aligned with where you are right now. Asking one question and then journaling or maybe doing a card pull rather than asking a bunch of questions or asking really big general questions about the trajectory of your life, maybe being focused on one thing right now instead of many. Pulling one card instead of doing a whole spread, that can also be good right now, right? So maybe doing a whole spread, it sometimes feels great. And at other times it feels like you don't quite have the energy for that. So one card is fine. Sitting with one symbol or one phrase and then reflecting on that. Sometimes people don't realize that meditation can be just meditating on a symbol, right? Maybe you want more self-love and just meditating on the symbol of a heart and just sitting with that for a bit of time. Maybe you need money and just sitting and meditating on the dollar sign, perhaps. It's important at this time of the wheel to choose depth over duration. That will always serve you best at this time of the wheel. And also knowing your energy, really listening to your energy and ending before you reach exhaustion. So we don't want to do these big elaborate practices that then lead us to be so drained that we need to sleep for a full day to recover. We want to be able to tap into our energy, understand ourselves well enough so that when it's time to end, we know how to end that well before we're at that point of exhaustion. So I also wanted to talk about, how to rethink and rework visualization during this time of the wheel, especially if that's been difficult. But let us know, what does it feel like? What kinds of practices feel right to you right now? Do you have the energy for large practices, or does it feel like smaller ones are working better for you now? And also, when your energy is drained, what do you do? What kind of practices help to keep you focused and anchored in your energy without overwhelm or draining. So let us know in the chat whether you're here live or watching back in replay. And I'll go back and I'll read some of those. But let's go on to reworking our visualization for the winter mind. So a common struggle that people may experience, they may say, I can't see the images as well as usual, or I can't see images at all anymore. Sometimes people will feel that way, right? They may say that visualization used to be easy and now it doesn't feel like it's easy anymore. So this is important for us to remember. Visualization isn't always visual. I actually have a whole episode on visualization techniques for witches. I'm only going to get into like a tiny bit of it tonight, but if you are interested in visualization, you can check that episode out. I'll drop that in the chat afterwards too, so you can grab it and check that out later if you want. But in winter, our visualization can shift more to feeling, to sensation, to emotion, to memory, and to symbols. So just kind of like we've been talking about. So instead of trying to see the images, maybe notice the temperature. So if you find that you're having difficulty with your visualization, rather than struggling, fighting against it, feeling bad about yourself, think about what does the temperature feel like? Is it warm? Is it cold? What does the emotional temperature feel like? Is there a weight? Is there a texture to the energy that you feel when you're, trying to visualize? So a lot of times what I will tell people too is like when I lead them through these guided visualizations, just listen to the words. You don't have to panic or worry if you're not seeing these crystal clear images. Just listen to the words. Notice if there's a weight or a texture to the words that you're hearing. Sense where in your body that energy is. Where is it changing? Where is it growing and developing? Where is it depleting or feeling depleted? You may just let a word or a symbol kind of arise into your mind rather than fighting against the visualization if it's not coming to you. Forcing our visualization will usually only lead us to frustration. And that's something that I've noticed before when I've told this story before, but I'll tell it very briefly. I took a course with Robert Moss, and he's very good at leading group visualizations and meditations. And so he led this meditation during the course, and during this particular day I was on the call live, and I do remember it was in the very beginning of February. This was a couple of years ago. And there was this visualization. It goes on for 10, 15 minutes. When we come out of it, I would say the vast majority of the group was really, or at least there was a good portion of the group was talking about how much they got out of it. And I literally felt like I got next to nothing out of it. And I started to feel frustrated and like there was something wrong with me and I had wasted the time and I wasn't getting as much out of it as everybody else. And if I had known kind of what I know now, I would have realized that frustration and that struggling isn't going to serve the energy well at all. And what I actually ended up doing is later on, because the course was recorded, I went back later and I re-listened to the visualization. And with in a calmer place, I was able to get a lot more out of it. So, but I was struggling against it. And if I had kind of knew what I know now, rather than fighting against the fact and becoming frustrated that I wasn't visualizing, maybe if I had just let a word or a symbol come into my mind, I would have gotten more out of it. Or I just kind of noticed how I was feeling or the texture of the words he was saying, I would have gotten more out of it. Like I said, forcing the visual imagery is usually only going to lead us to frustration. And non-visual perception can be just as magical as visualization. So what about working with the intuition as well? And put in the chat too, if you have struggled with visualization, do you struggle with visualization in general? Do you notice if you're struggling more with it now than at other times? Let us know in the chat. And not only does it help me, because it's good to get comments during the lives, it feeds it out to more people, the more engagement we have. But I think it also helps other viewers to feel less alone when they hear your experiences as well. So what do we do? So here's some tips for intuition now. So shifting from visualization into intuition. What do we do with intuition? How do we work with it when it feels like it's quieter? So sometimes it's not as loud and flashy as other times. It can show up during the winter as more subtle nudges, emotional signals. Like I said, repeating ideas. So if there's something that kind of like is nudging you, do this, try this, and you just sort of feel this like gentle nudge kind of below the surface, that could be your intuition nudging you. Body sensations, things inside the body, and like I said, dreams, half remembered images from dreams. So see, even if you're somebody who doesn't remember your dreams really well, and maybe you wake up and you don't remember the imagery at all, but you have like a feeling, or you have like a half remembered image, or maybe those images surface and they come to you later in the day. Take note of those as well, because this may be your intuition trying to communicate with you during this part of the wheel where things are a little quieter. So listen instead of questioning. That can be a nice tip for how to work with intuition when it's quieter. Receive instead of analyzing immediately. So maybe in the summer, when maybe there's the intuition feels more visual, or it feels more on point, right? And we can immediately kind of receive these downloads, analyze what they mean, integrate them very quickly, and move through, because that energy is so fast, move through it quickly. But maybe during this time of the wheel, we receive and we just let that kind of come into our periphery, right? And then let it sort of soak into us rather than immediately analyzing everything that's going on. Ask yourself softer questions. So instead of asking yourself, like, what is my life trajectory, or what is the pathway I should be on for my job or my career, or asking big questions like that, maybe instead we shift to asking questions like, what do I need today? What kind of energy do I need today? What kind of support do I need today? Or just in general, what do I need today? We might ask ourselves a simple question like, what is my energy asking for today? And then listening, again, listening for all of the answers and the different ways they may come through, from body sensations, right, to emotions, to textures, and then also to visualization, because it could still be working at this time. Notice patterns that you have over time, rather than noticing just those single moments of intuition. And I think here are some things that I would recommend avoiding at this time. So avoid demanding clarity. So, so if the subtle messages are coming through and you don't understand them, I think that so one of the things that I feel about like winter energy is that it is more constrictive. In Universal Kabbalah, the period of time that starts right at February and then goes through to spring equinox is called Saturn. It's the Saturn period. And the period right before that is the Venus period. Now, during the Venus period, which starts around the beginning of December or mid-December to beginning of February, it's a time of kind of relaxing and enjoying yourself. So again, not outward movement, pushing, forcing, it's enjoyment. And then we move into the Saturn period, which kind of concludes winter. It's a time of reflection again. It's a time of like learning lessons, engaging with lessons, but like Saturn energy is very restrictive, constrictive, right? So when we demand things, so think about the word demand. When we demand clarity of ourselves or of our guides, or from our guides or something like that, that energy is not as expansive as we would like intuitive energy to be. So letting things just come through without demanding that clarity, not pushing immediately for certainty, being okay in the uncertainty is very aligned with winter energy. And be careful too not to interpret silence as failure. So sometimes people will maybe they're getting some intuitive urges coming through. They're not sure what they mean, and so they ask their guides, or they try to reflect on it themselves, and they receive silence, or what they perceive to be silence, and then they think that they're failing, or something's failing in the relationship between them and their guides. And again, silence is not failure. Silence is part of the process. It's part of the energy of winter. So just trust that, whatever comes through during this time, when that energy starts to pick up again in the spring, you may gain insights to things that you were just simply receiving during the winter time. Remember, quiet intuition is still intuition, right? Now, the other thing that I think is important for us to note, and let me go to the chat too. So, Mary Meet to Samantha and Taliesin also here. Mary Meet. Anne said, she said in general she doesn't have issues with visualization, but in this season it does feel subdued. Yeah, and so me too. I don't generally have a lot of trouble with visualization, but I was noticing myself as I was putting together this episode. I was like, yeah, I do think my visualization feels more subdued. It feels a little more symbolic right now, and that is that subtle shift of the energy. Um, so so again, containment, not expansion, to me is a good rule of thumb for the winter. So let's just talk a moment about what that means. So containment is where we hold our energy rather than immediately using it in some way. We conserve our psychic resources. So again, I going back to that analogy of nature in wintertime. Nature is conserving resources so that the resources are available in the spring. And so when we contain our energy, we are conserving our psychic resources. We can use this time to strengthen our boundaries, because that will make us even more effective as we move into the springtime. And then allowing things to gestate, those ideas that are coming in from the periphery. Maybe it's not time to move on them yet. It's time to let them gestate and see what happens. So if we contrast that with expansion, expansion belongs more to the spring and to the summer. Like I said, this is kind of more Saturnian energy that we'll be moving into, especially as we cross into February. Winter is more about stability and protection. So working protection magic, whether that is physical protection or psychic protection or energetic protection. How do you protect your energy? Analyzing where you spend that energy. Are you spending it in the right places? Are you pushing against the flow of energy in the collective or in the season? So really contemplating that, so that you then can learn how to conserve your energy and then prepare for when that energy starts to move, the collective energy starts to move again in the spring. So some examples would be making sure you have fewer energetic cords that you leave open. So we all leave energetic cords open. One really nice practice is to call your energy back to you at the end of the day, closing your eyes, getting into a kind of a reflective state, noticing any tugging. If you visualize really well, you may actually visualize cords extending out of you to other places. If you don't visualize as well during this time of the wheel, you may feel like a tugging from certain parts of your body, right? These are telling you that your energy is being pulled in different ways. So this could be the time to reel some of those cords in, so we have fewer cords kind of unraveling outside of us. Maybe there's less sharing of our energy and more tending of our energy, right? So if you are somebody who's always giving, 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 I really encourage you to use this time again to recalibrate yourself, to refresh your energy, to rebuild, to integrate, or you're just going to move into the spring. And when that upswing of energy comes, you'll move with it, but you're not going to be coming into it in as much of a like a filled state, right? Because you're going to come in with depleted energy to begin with. Saying no without explanations. You never have to explain your no's to anybody. So if you need to say no in order to preserve your energy, practice it, get used to it, get good at it, because it is something that will definitely benefit you. And then trying to keep your practices simpler. Like I said, maybe you usually do those big elaborate rituals, but you feel like doing something a little bit less right now because that feels more aligned with the way that your energy is. So winter magic protects what is becoming, right? And so that what is becoming, what will be birthed, what will grow in the spring, our winter magic protects that now. So some gentle practices that you can use right now. I already mentioned journaling. I think journaling is a very good practice to do at this time, especially if it's reflective and less goal oriented. It's just kind of like checking in. How am I feeling? How does my energy feel? What's working well? What seems like it's not working well? What am I pushing against that seems like it's causing struggle? As opposed to journaling on, okay, in my business, I'm going to create, all these things. That is the journaling for springtime. Dream tracking. So tracking your dreams would be a good task for you to do right now. So even if you don't remember your dreams, what I would recommend doing is having some paper near the side of the bed. When you wake up, jot down anything that you can remember. Don't even roll over. I mean, I guess you can roll over to get the paper and the pen, but don't get up and drink coffee and check social media. Just really write down a few words of what you remember as you wake up, even if those are just feelings or like song lyrics in your head. And begin tracking your dreams this way, studying symbols. If symbols are coming up for you, study those. You don't immediately have to go and ask everybody you know what the symbol means or look it up online and find 100 different responses. Really think about, what does the symbol mean for you? Where do you notice it occurring? What could it be trying to tell you? Try to develop your intuition around that, and then you can reach out to others and ask them what they think and get confirmation or new ideas. Doing some ancestor work. This is definitely a great time of the wheel to work with your ancestors, doing that more inner focused work. Hearth focused rituals. So rituals that are related to your house and your home and the places that you find, where you find your stability and your security. So our ancestors were very hearth focused at this time. That's really what Imbolc is all about. It's about the hearth, right? And the home. And so this can be a good time to do protective magic for your home, for your kids, for your pets, for your property, for your car, for yourself, right? And really focus on, I talked earlier about like this can be a time when people feel like more nesting energy, right? So being more focused on that is going to be more aligned with the energy of this season. So I think that the practices that I would use more sparingly, especially if you're feeling energetically drained, is big manifestation work. So if you got like big things you want to manifest, just know we're very close. Springtime is not far from now. I know it feels like it's really far away. Today's the 20th of January. It's 2 months away. But those 2 months will go by very quickly. And I think that the what you do right now to kind of conserve your energy will allow you to have more energy for those big manifestations when springtime comes. Now, that doesn't mean you cannot manifest right now. That's absolutely untrue. You can manifest at any time of the wheel. But if you are feeling energetically drained, it could be worth contemplating whether doing maybe some small manifestations right now would be better than doing something really large, and maybe saving that big thing for when you have more energy, when you feel like you've got more energy, which is likely to shift as you move into the spring. Also, anything that's like emotionally draining for you right now, I would probably try to do that as sparingly as you can at this time. Because again, if you are feeling drained, that will only drain you further. And this is really the time of the wheel to be filling up your cup. So again, it's also important for us to, kind of emphasize that you always have a choice in all of this. There isn't a right or a wrong way. If you, like I said, if you feel like your energy, if you're listening to this, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, I feel totally fine. Listen to yourself, always above everything else. You are the expert on you. We live in a world that kind of teaches us to turn, to give our autonomy over to who we perceive to be experts. And but so if that misaligns with where you are, always listen to you, because there is no one right way. But follow what feels sustainable for you, what feels good to you, what feels like it serves your energy best. And so if a few of these things I'm talking about tonight really align and really resonate, then take those to heart. And if they don't, leave them for another time when maybe they do. I think it's also important for us to trust this time as a moment of pause. Winter is not an absence of something, it's really preparation. Again, going to that analogy of nature, right? Nature is preparing for spring. Why would we be any different than nature? And we as witches, we are closer to nature than your average muggle human, right? So we too are in sort of a preparation mode, waiting for that springtime. But that doesn't mean that we're just waiting here doing nothing. We're doing the necessary work to rest and recover and focus inward, and maybe try to integrate the things that we learned in the previous spring, summer, and fall, integrating that into ourselves so that we move forward. Really being able to utilize that truth and what we've learned as we move into springtime. Your mind is likely reorganizing information right now. And like I said earlier, that if you are feeling foggy, if you're feeling that kind of psychic fog, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just a sign that your body is probably trying to turn inward, to do that integration and to rest and to gather strength and to gather energy. So, we're moving into Imbolc soon. So, like as I said, we're recording this on the 20th of January. So, Imbolc is really just like 11 or 12 days away. And so, while we may be in that kind of winter mind, the winter witch's mind right now, which feels sort of like a holding phase, Imbolc is like the spark. I've always loved Imbolc, especially when I lived in Boston, where it was much colder and the winters there was snow outside. But even here in Los Angeles, things change. It's cooler, and I was just noticing the leaves falling off the trees today. But as we move out of that winter holding phase, we feel the spark of Imbolc. And that is the reminder to us that the spring is almost here. So I feel like as you move into Imbolc, you may carry some of the sluggishness, some of the mental fog with you. But as you move through Imbolc and you kind of welcome back the light, I believe that will start to shift and change for you little by little, and then you'll start to have more energy as you move into the spring. So that is what I have for you tonight. So I hope that you enjoyed the episode and kind of learning about, how to normalize what might be going on internally. I'm just going to go to the chat for a moment. So and I see Cersei is also here, Mary Meet. Joanne said, she said, my intuition is still strong. She said, however, my energy is pretty low. She said, my dreams are not coming through like they usually do. Yeah, so if you are somebody who dreams don't usually come through, then it may feel like they are even more so not coming through right now. Try still, because it is a time of the year where we're turning inward. Try to, just reflect on your dreams. Just write a few words down when you wake up. What were you feeling? Over time, you may notice that your dreams become stronger through that. And then Joanne also said she has too many energy vampires. She said, I have to call my energy back more often than not. And so it's good to have the insight into it, because sometimes, very sensitive people, they don't even recognize that there are all these energy vampires that are actually the ones sapping their energy. And then they feel like it's just them and they can't figure out what's going on. So it's great insight to know that you have that. Yeah, and keep calling your energy back. Call it back every night before you go to bed. Call it back more than once a day if you need to. I think that too, I feel like particularly sensitive people will be even more sensitive to energy vampires during this time, because if you think about what we're talking about tonight, it's a collective thing. It's not just us. It's not just witches and people who are more intuitive, who are going to be experiencing the kind of the turning inward of energy. Your average energetic vampire is also going to be experiencing that, but they are not. They do not have the reflection that we have or the insight that we have. And so they're going to notice unconsciously that their energy is drained. And so what is an energy vampire going to do? They're going to find a place to get energy, right, when they notice that they're drained. And so they may be causing more havoc on those of us who are energetically sensitive than usual. So definitely do more practices to call your energy back as you need to. Yeah, and Anne said giving is a part of my job, and me too. And so for especially for people like us, it's important for us to maybe we're not going to change the way that we give, but we need to be conscious of filling ourselves back up. I mean, I know I speak for myself when I say that, but it is when I came out of like December, there's a lot that goes on, rituals and different things, and a lot of giving. And I came out of it really feeling quite drained. And then there were other things happening in my mundane life that was also draining me of energy. So I was like, I don't want to give less because it's part of my job as well. But I had to shift and kind of change the way I viewed things, and I'm like, well, you know what, today I'm just not going to be able to give as much as usual, maybe, or maybe I need to take a day off to just really soak up my own energy and refresh and rebalance myself. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat. Questions can be about anything. It doesn't have to be about, the witch's mind in winter. It can be about energy work, shadow work, witchcraft. Put those in the chat. I do have one question that was left for me, so I'm going to just share a few thoughts on this one, and then I'll see what others put in the chat. So Samantha said, what are the differences and similarities between energy, mind, and spirit? And what are they? Where do they come from? And how do we work with them in our craft work? So very good question. So what is the differences between and similarities between energy, mind, and spirit? So I'm going to share some thoughts on this. And again, these are only my thoughts, and they're going to come from a specific tradition. So just know that others may have different viewpoints on this. But from the yogic tradition, what energy is prana. At least this is the word in Sanskrit to use for energy. And energy comes from everything. So everything that's alive has energy. Different forces and intentions have energy. Essentially, everything in the universe comes down to energy. Now, prana we take in as we breathe. This is one of the primary places that the tradition says we take in energy through breath. We take it in through food. We take it in through water, and we also take it in through our interactions with other people. And so our prana can get stuck in our bodies in places. So this is why we do energy work to move our prana, why we work with the chakras, because our prana will get stuck in certain places is really meant to kind of turn our attention to that specific spot and tell us you need a little bit of work here. To me, it's like a barometer. So if you have throat chakra issues, you're having a lot of sore throats, you have like pain in the neck, clicking jaw, TMJ, earaches, difficulty speaking. So there's a lot of different symptoms of having kind of energy blocked in the throat. That's a barometer that tells us to do some practices with the throat chakra to move that stuck and stagnant energy. So that's kind of the idea. Like I could get into like a very long discussion of what prana is, where it comes from, but that's kind of like it in a nutshell, at least from this particular tradition. So the question was also asking about mind and spirit. So in the same system, we have many bodies. We have the physical body, but we also have the energetic body. And we also have the mental and the emotional body. So there's a body that's called the Manomaya Kosha, and that in Kosha means body, and then Manomaya. So this is the energy, or this is the mind essentially, and the emotions. And the idea here in the Manomaya kosha is that it's fluctuating. So your mind, by this definition, is something that can change. So like our negative thoughts, automatic negative thoughts, they are not reality, just like emotions are not reality. So you can feel really, really terrible in an instant. And that doesn't mean that that's like the state that you are in perpetually. Just like you can have a really automatic negative thought, that does not mean that that is reality. So that is fluctuating and changing, and that's what can change when we do shadow work or we do energy work. We can change in the pranamaya kosha, which is the energy body, we can move energy, and then in the manomaya kosha, we can move energy so that we can change the way we think and we can change the way we feel. But there's also something called the Vijnanamaya kosha, which is like really where like our insight and our intuition comes from. And I think that this is what we're talking about when it comes to like the mind that is preserved. So when we die and we go through the process of reincarnation into like another body in this plane or in another one, the Vijnanamaya kosha, elements of it come with us. And there's also something called the Anandamaya kosha, which is the bliss body, and that is your spirit or your soul. So these parts come with us, right? As opposed to the Manomaya kosha, which fluctuates. The mind just stays here behind. So it kind of depends on how you define it. Every tradition is going to define it a little bit differently, but that is the one that I am more well versed in and what I wanted to share. But where do they come from? Tradition tells us they come from like the essence and the source of everything. And when we die, like our prana, like a sponge that's soaked in water, it's like the sponge dries out, and all of that water is the prana. It's the energy that kind of goes back into the universe. But then there's parts of us that carry through the Vijnanamaya kosha and the Anandamaya kosha, kind of that higher mind, the higher self, and also the soul, and that carries on. So I hope that just some thoughts. I don't really think it's a question that anybody can definitively answer, but that is at least what yogic, tantric yogic tradition would teach us about where all of this comes from. So let me go back to the chat, see if there are any other questions. If you got any questions, leave them in the chat. I'm going to let you know what's coming up, and that way if anybody has any remaining questions they want to put in, they can. So next week on 127, we're going to do an episode on the Witch's Guide to Imbolc. So it'll be a couple days early for Imbolc, will be later that weekend. But I love to do those episodes the week before, so it gives you ideas on what you can do to celebrate Imbolc. And then on 2/1, February 1st, we're going to be having our public online Imbolc ritual. So if you are looking for something to do for Imbolc, this could be a good choice for you. This is our traditional ritual that our coven puts on. This is probably going to be, I think, the 4th year we've done this ritual, and it changes every year a little bit, but we always work with the goddess Bridget, and we do elemental vows. So Imbolc is a good time for you to kind of contemplate your path. It's a good time to rededicate yourself or dedicate yourself, if you never have, to your path, to a goddess, to an intention or an idea. And so what we do is we work with the 5 elements, including spirit. We do kind of a meditative, kind of guided meditation where you will contemplate where your energy is when it comes to these 5 different elements. And then we will guide you and help you write a set of elemental vows that you can then use as we move through Imbolc season and beyond to kind of keep you focused on your path. And it's a really beautiful ritual. People love it. It's one of our, probably, besides that and Samhain, it's probably one of our most beloved rituals that we do. So we're really excited to bring it to you again this year. If you are in Shadow Seekers or of course, in Coven of Midnight's Flame, you already get a ticket to that. You'll get the Zoom link. But if you are not in either of those groups, we invite you to join us as well. So I'll be sending out some more information later this week, probably closer to the weekend, and you'll be able to purchase a ticket by donation if you would like to join us. Now, if you are not already on our mailing list, I'm going to put that link in the chat. If you are watching back on YouTube later, this will be in the description of the video. So I invite you to sign up, get on our mailing list. You receive notifications when there are new videos on our YouTube, and you will also receive information about all upcoming events so you don't miss out on anything. And then additionally, when you sign up, you get a free copy of The Witch's Guide to Shadow Work sent to your email. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Body, Mind, Witchcraft, and that way you will not miss a future episode either. And also helps us. We're trying to get to monetization this year with the YouTube, and so every subscriber helps, and every video you watch also helps us to get closer to that goal. And leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the video, and that will help us get this out to the feed of more people. If you're watching back in replay as well, you can leave questions and comments. I go through the feed later, and I'll answer anything that I missed during the live. Well, I hope this video helps. I hope it gives you at least something to contemplate as we move further into the winter and then eventually transition into the spring. And love spending Tuesday evenings with you as always. And until next time. Blessed be.